Happy AU Day. Welcome, everybody. Oh, this was nice. This was nice. So welcome, everybody. For those joining us on Facebook, welcome. And for our beautiful audience on Zoom as well, welcome once again to the Busara Leadership Hour. My name is Vera, and I'm always joined in by the evergreen Taka Awori. Great, and we have wonderful people always checking up on us, like Lydia and Muriel and many, many more great people. But again, we are here because we care about you, and we have an interesting topic today. This interesting topic is coming about because of change, and we know that change is our new normal. For organizations who thrive in this world, we know of rapid change, and rapid change is happening everywhere, whether in your business, in your organization, in your team, change is happening. However, as a leader, you need to be on top of your game. You need to constantly be adapting and driving change. And so for this, we realize that a lot of leaders in their quest to drive change are making mistakes. So for our topic today, we're talking about common mistakes in leading change and how to avoid them. Common mistakes in leading change and how to avoid them. My special guest is Taka Awori. Taka Awori is a certified trainer and a coach. She's also a leadership trainer, and she has been with us for so many beautiful years, working with million leaders. So Taka, thank you for always doing this for us, and welcome.
Thank you.
Taka, how are you?
Thank you. I'm good, and welcome. So lovely to see so many of you all here. Huh? Welcome.
All right. So as we said, today we are looking at common mistakes in leading change and how to avoid them. I want to start off with you giving us some examples of the change you are seeing leaders are striving to make. What are some of the examples of the change you see leaders striving to make? Please go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Vera. And I really hope this will be a conversation where I'm opening the conversation, being a catalyst for some reflection amongst us all. Huh? But we thought this was such a crucial conversation because in the last couple of months, as I work with a variety of leaders across the globe, a common pattern I saw was indeed leading and driving change. Huh? And as you asked, Vera, what are some of the examples I've seen? I've seen in one instance an organization that's changing its strategic direction. And I think we've seen many organizations, because of COVID, they have been rethinking, if it's a company, rethinking their business plan, their business model to be more adaptable to the new norm. If it's a non-for-profit, it's thinking about how can you be more impactful in a context that has changed. So that's one type of change I've seen happen, where leaders are changing strategic direction or adapting or shifting their business model, and they need to get the entire company or organization behind them. That's one. Eh? Then I have seen at less kind of company-wide or organization-wide level, I've seen examples of leaders who recognize that the culture of their team or ways of working of their team are not up to standard, are not enabling them to deliver results. And then therefore, that's what they're trying to change. Yeah? So maybe they're trying to get their team to take more initiative, to be more proactive, to be more committed to a certain standard of excellence. So that's another level. Huh? And maybe the final example I will give is an instance where I think, again, because of the pandemic, we're seeing that many organizations or businesses are going digital. So companies are thinking about a digital transformation, and therefore they're leading change where they're trying to get all staff on board in terms of using technology a lot more internally in terms of ways of working, but also in terms of how they serve their clients or respond to their constituents. So those are kinds of examples of what I have seen leaders trying to do as part of leading change. And I'm sure our participants here on Zoom and on Facebook Live have other examples of what it looks like to lead change.
Awesome, awesome. So this is just the introduction where we kind of connect to the main topic. So if you just joined us, welcome once again. And we are really talking about the common mistakes that leaders are making in ways of driving change and how to avoid these mistakes. And Taka has been fantastic just with the intro. So we're waiting for the rest. But Taka, we also want to find out what are some of the mistakes you see leaders making whilst they want to drive change. What are the mistakes you see?
Yeah, and let me, I'm starting with mistakes only as a way of recognizing and appreciating that leading change is hard. Huh? And I think, as Sarah, for instance, is indicating in the chat, it's challenging. And it's often an emotional and exhausting process. And I hope later today, later in this conversation, we can think together about how we turn these into opportunities that work for all involved. Huh? But let me go quickly through some of the examples of mistakes that we often make. Huh? The first I have seen is under-communicating. Thinking that as a leader, if you say something once, if you describe the new direction, the new vision, if you explain what will happen to different staff, if you describe the action plan for getting from where we are to where we want to be, you think that will be enough. Huh? And then you get shocked when somebody says, but we don't have enough information, and you think, but didn't I just explain that? So under-communicating and being surprised when people still don't think they have enough information. So that's the first. Huh? The second mistake I have seen is when leaders ignore the emotional dimension of change. And again, I think this is what Sarah is alluding to. Let's face it, change, whether it's at a micro level, whether it means just you as an individual changing your behavior, versus organizational wide change, is hard. And it can be emotionally draining. But yet I see sometimes leaders can get very mechanical about the process. You just want to get to that destination. So you have a plan and you're like, and you're just going, forgetting that to take people from where they are now to that desired destination, that change process, is a deeply emotional process that requires your empathy. So treating it as a mechanical kind of technical process is another mistake I've seen. Huh? The third, and this is the third mistake, and this is a tough one, is where I see leaders treating the resistance to change that they face as a bad thing. And I say it's a tough one because it's quite natural when you have a clear vision of where you want your business, your organization to be, where your team to be, and you really believe in that big vision, and then there's a group of people who are just refusing to come on board, it's quite natural for you to get very frustrated and to see them as the big barrier, the roadblock. And I think this is a mistake to actually see resistance as a bad thing. Later, we can talk about, well, how should we look at resistance rather than, but treating it resistance and resistors as purely problematic, I think is a mistake. And another mistake I have seen, less so, but it's sometimes present, and this happens when you're trying to do micro change, or particularly when you're trying to bring about change in culture, is when you think change will happen by accident, or just somehow the gods will descend and it will happen. Increasingly, I will come across leaders who will be so bitter and frustrated with the organizational culture of their teams or organization-wide, but will have no game plan for how you actually change that. So I think it's a mistake to just think things will somehow shift. People's attitudes will somehow, you will just talk, and all of a sudden their attitudes will change. That doesn't happen. So that's another mistake, thinking change will happen by accident. Last two mistakes I've seen is a situation where as a leader, you're very clear on the destination, the change you want to get to. You know it's the right thing, but the way you do it is not in alignment with your values. So you as an organization or a business, you profess to be committed to transparency, to equity, to all those things, but your journey to that destination is completely devoid of that. You say you value staff participation and ownership, but there's absolutely no participation and ownership in your change process. So the mistake is implementing the change without aligning it to your values, because you're just so determined to get to the destination. And then maybe the last one, which is closely aligned to this previous one, and then I'll stop, is forgetting that the journey is just as important as the destination. So again, all of us have, as leaders, have these amazing visions we have of what will happen when the change is realized. We'll be more agile, we'll be more adaptable, we'll be more responsive to our communities and our customers. And those are valid visions and destinations. However, again, if the process to get there, the way you lead the change to get there, doesn't bring everyone along, is not in alignment with your values, you may end up somehow losing the plot and never quite reaching that destination. So let me stop there and let's hear some other thoughts and comments. I see already quite a bit in the chat. Over to you, Vera.
Thank you so much, Taka. Thank you. And we need to do this together, everybody. So Taka has mentioned a few of the mistakes that, from her perspective and the people that she's been working with, the leaders that she's been working with, they have identified as mistakes. We want to hear from you. If you have experienced change in that way, what has been some of the mistakes that you see yourself overcoming, or what was your experience with that drive of change? Let us talk, speak to us. Sarah, thank you so much for this post. I'm going to read it. If you would want to come on and speak, just show me your hand and then we'll just allow you to speak, because we also want to hear your voice. But Sarah says, hello to everybody. A very timely conversation, a very challenging and often emotionally exhausting process. But how to turn these into opportunities that work for all involved. And I think that is what we're going to zoom into pretty soon. We would really want to hear a voice. Talk to us about your experience. Yes, Carol will be sharing the recording. Stay with us, okay? Join our tribe as well. Okay, Matilda, thank you. Can we have some more before we go into the ways to minimize them or avoid them?
There's a question from Donna Marie has her hand up, and also Sarah has her hand up. Maybe we can hear from Donna.
Donna first.
You want to hear from Donna? Mm-hmm.
Sorry, I just remembered to unmute myself. Hi, everyone. This is my first time, and Taka, thank you for inviting me. I'm not sure I can stay the whole hour, but I'll do my best. So just to follow on from what Taka said earlier, because it resonated with me, my past experience, I worked for an organization where change was at such a rapid pace, because the organization grew, you know the organization, Taka, so I wouldn't mention it, but over the past 20 odd years, it has literally doubled in size and grown, and everybody knows the organization. But one of the ways by which we managed change was, as you mentioned, you said some of the mistakes were under communication. We tended to over communicate. So we would hold things like town hall sessions and make sure that every single employee, regardless of your level, would attend, and whatever the company was planning to do, was doing, where we were going, etc., was explained in detail. They were allowed to ask questions from senior management, and people would sort of phone in from Seattle as well, the head office. You asked whatever questions you were, your fears were allayed, and you felt that you had a voice. We also organized things like employee forums, because one of the ways of getting the buy-in from all employees is for them to feel that they're being represented. And what we did in the HR department was have the employees themselves vote for their colleagues who would represent them. So whenever we had a big change coming up, planned, we would first of all meet with the representatives of the forum, explain what was going to happen, how it would benefit them, how it would impact the company, how it tied in with the company's vision. And they in turn would then have meetings with all the other employees. And that's how we got the buy-in for a lot of things. So it was quite a smooth process and it worked very well. But I cannot emphasize enough the value of communicating consistently. Over communication is far better than under communicating. You mentioned also, Taka, ignoring the emotional dimension of change. When you involve them, that kind of mitigates that quite a bit, because once they understand exactly where the company's going, how it's going to impact them, benefit them, etc., it does allay their fears. Treating resistance as bad, when leaders do that. One of the things that the organization was also big on was taking on board other people's opinions and views over various things. So we had what we call, I'm sure a lot of you have heard of something called Kaizen. It's a Japanese, you know about Kaizen, okay, whereby you make incremental improvements to processes and procedures.
Oh, please, Donna, please explain it. I have come across it, but maybe others haven't.
Okay, it's a Japanese, it's a concept. I'll try and see if I can remember. The name suggests it's Japanese, and it is Japanese in origin. And it's where you make improvements constantly to a process or a system that you have, or a situation that you have. And one of the things that we were big on was every single day at some point, the GM of each site would actually go into the warehouse to speak to the lower level employees, the people working in the warehouse, would talk about problems that we're having in the warehouse and would ask for suggestions. And some of these suggestions were just absolutely amazing. I mean, we did have a guy who came up with some, a suggestion that saved the company, I'm talking thousands of pounds, and they rolled it out across the country. So when they feel that they have a voice and they're treated as being just as important, even though, let's say you're a level 1 and not a level 8, like senior management, but when you feel that you're being listened to, that makes a huge difference. It makes a huge difference. And so, you get that tie-in, that emotional tie-in, you get that feeling that it's a we thing, not us and them. And that's extremely important, especially when there's major change going on. You also mentioned things about the process not being in alignment with the values, sort of implementing things without aligning them with the values. And that is quite important. I made notes as you were speaking, so just picking up on things. And then also ensuring that, you do remember the journey is just as important as the destination. And you're quite right about that, because the step-by-step process, it's important, because that can make or break whatever it is that you're trying to do. And also to ensure that it's sustainable and does remain going forward. Okay.
Oh,
thank you. Thank you, Donna, all the way from the UK. Fantastic. Thank you, Donna.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. So we want to take one from Sarah. Sarah, please go ahead. Now, in the meantime, Ebenezer is telling all of the BOA colleagues, please rename yourselves. Thank you, Ebenezer. Please go ahead, Sarah.
Hello, everybody, and thank you so much for organizing this. I don't really have much in terms of wisdom to offer. We're an organization that's going through a process of change, and depending on who you speak to, have been going through a process of change over the last sort of 10 or so years. And I agree with all the sort of processes and measures that Taka and the previous, the previous commentator have made in terms of what can be done. And all of these, I suppose, have been implemented. The change is, I think, in our situation, it's part co-created, but also part top down. And I guess there have to be moments where, the acceptance will come, in the sense that, those who lead the organization make decisions about, the future they want to see, the vision they want to see, and where we come in is co-creating how we get there. And so on. But I find that much of the leadership's time is taken in doing the hardware stuff, the strategy development. If you're going to change your organizational structures, the governance, all of those different pieces, and that's where you're pulled. That's where you are pulled in an organization to go and devote a lot of your time to. That often the time and investment, and even the processes for listening about the co-created processes become, things that become add-on for leaders, as opposed to what are driving the things. Because you have to decide, you're only one person, and there are only 24 hours in a day, and there are things you're being asked to do for which your performance is being measured against. And I often feel that takes away from a process in which we are trying to carry everyone along. And I just wonder how, from the other people's experiences, how we balance between doing the hardware stuff, but also the stuff that makes the hardware move. The people. Thanks.
Thank you, Sarah, all the way from Kampala. Thank you, Sarah.
Thank you. Now, with the points that Sarah just raised, and one that I'm reading from Gillian, I think we need to move into the ways to minimize, or better still, avoid these mistakes. Because from Gillian as well, she says, often leaders are very resistant to change and try to shut down the resistors or resistance. What is the best way to handle it when you are a leader? What is the best way? So, yeah.
When your leader is resistant to change and other people's views. Thank you. I saw Gillian's hand up. Gillian, do you want to speak a little bit more to that? Because that's a good one. That's a tough one. Go ahead, Gillian.
Actually, it's fine. I think in the interest of time, I'll let you just answer that and then we can keep going. But
okay.
I think I'll just let you answer that one. Thank you.
Okay. All right. So Vera, shall I go through some of the strategies, and in that way also respond to some of the issues that Gillian has raised, and Sarah, and also pick up on some of Donna's points, which I thought was so useful. And folks, please also know you can add in. This is co-thinking of how we deal with some of these dilemmas. I think a key strategy, I think Donna has alluded to in terms of the communication, around the need to, in fact, over-communicate, use different fora. And I think Donna gave an example. If you're a big enough company, not all of us are in big enough companies, but if you're in a big enough company or organization, having different types of platforms for different categories of staff to fully engage, share their frustrations, talk about how they're feeling. And that communication needs to be two ways. So they can't be platforms where you're talking at people, but really platforms where you're also getting people's perspectives on what they're thinking about the change and how they're experiencing the change. And I think that's also the moment where, again, I've seen leaders who make mistakes and they just come on board and all they're talking about, so we're going to do this. And so far we've met the first milestone on the strategy. And so far we're 80% completed. And that is actually the moment to be totally emotionally connected to your team. There was a point Sarah had made earlier on in the chat where when you tell people, oh, we're moving in this new direction, and you see the value of that new direction, whereas people interpret it differently. They're already seeing it as criticism. Why? What was it I was doing that was so bad? Do I see myself in the new direction? Insecurity, fear, worry. Communication is less about the facts. Communication is really speaking to the emotions. So in fact, at those moments, to me, that's where your emotional intelligence, it has to be way up high as a leadership team, because it's actually not facts people are interested in. The main question people want to hear when they're going through changes, what's going to happen to me? Will I still be relevant? Will I still be valued? Will I survive? If I have to go, will I be taken care of? So many times it's keeping in mind that communication needs to be at an emotional level. And as it needs to be two ways as well. The other aspect is participation, carrying people along. And again, Sarah alluded to an interesting point. Sometimes when leaders make the decision of the direction, and then the rest of you come on, implement. So you come in to implement, you start to see some tension. So I would say it's even encouraging leaders to, yes, you are the leader, you have some vision on the direction, but increasingly leaving some room for decision-making around that direction to come from people. Because again, the example from Donna Marie, the person at the front line could actually see that, wow, if we did this differently, it could happen in a different way. We could save the company millions of dollars. So forming groups of people, indeed, that enable staff to have an organized way to participate and engage, not always just an implementation of decisions you all have made, but potentially also participating in some of the decisions or influencing at least some of the decisions around the direction of the company. The other thing I would say is around the plan, and maybe this is going to Sarah's question. This is going to Sarah's question around, clearly you could, implied from what I alluded to about not having a plan being a mistake. What's clear as a strategy is you need to have a clear game plan and strategy for change. And I would say even as part of that strategy, a communication strategy, only because communication is so big, particularly if you're talking about organizational wide change. But going to Sarah's point, in order to ensure that the activities in your plan are not so intensely focused on hardware, reorganizing, restructuring, new technology, it's important that you dedicate sufficient time for the software, sufficient time for processes that enable people to talk about their feelings, enable people to input, enable people to think through, enable leaders to take care of themselves. Because guess what? When you are leading change, you will get beaten upon, you become the evil one, the nasty one. You can even, I mean, it's really tough on you as a leader to lead change. So part of that software is not just about supporting the emotions of staff, it's also about supporting your own emotions, because it is really emotionally tough to lead change. So let me stop there and have some more input from folks. Oh, sorry, Gillian's point. Gillian, this tough one. And if I'm understanding it, when you are trying to bring about change, but you are not the ultimate decision maker, and the resistance, either the leader at the top is shutting down resistance, or is not managing the resistance, or is not actually, it seems to be resistant to change. I think there's two options, at least I think, and it'd be interesting to hear other people. Two options is one, influencing up. So it's as much as possible influencing your boss, because to me, leadership is not just about a title. So in that respect, you may be exercising leadership to influence up in that direction. The other is to really look at whether you're a match to that company or organization. Because often one of the key things about leading change, particularly if it's about a culture change, changing the way people behave, is going to ultimately be around accountability, holding people to account on the new behaviors, the new ways of doing things. And there might be times you can't hold your peer to account, or you may not have the authority to do that. It may need the boss to do that. And if your boss is not willing to do that, then you may find that, is this really a match for me? So let me stop here and see other comments on the chat, others, thoughts, questions.
Thank you, Taka. Thank you so much, Taka. Hello to Mr. Poby on Facebook. Hello. So he's really doing a great job. He's really following us. And Muriel's question, I think, as she said, is tied to Gillian's. So we're good on that. We would like to hear from all of you. It doesn't matter if you're new, please open up and let's talk, okay? But whilst we wait, Taka, I have a question for you. What if you want to drive change, okay? But the change that you're trying to drive is a change done in your team, and then the whole organization is doing otherwise. What happens? So your team is moving, it's changing, you can see it, but the entire organization, especially when it's a big one, is not changing, it's doing something quite opposite. How do we handle that?
Brilliant. Vera, I wonder with your permission if we can hear from Jerry, and then I can take the two together. I see his hand up.
Yes, please. Jerry, please go ahead. I didn't see that.
Taka, thank you very much, Taka. This is a great conversation. I have a little question on the very last point, the point of forgetting that the journey is as important as the destination. I just wanted to find out how crucial is celebrating the little wins along the journey. I have picked the issue about having town hall meetings to get a feedback for your team members and for yourself as a leader. But as you carry them along, what would be your thoughts on the little wins along the line, celebrating? How do you feel that will be the great impact? Thank you.
Thank you, Jerry. It's so interesting. Some of you have ideas and you're posing as a question. It's fantastic. I love it. I think you're spot on, Jerry. And I think that's an important strategy, celebrating the small wins along the journey. Thank you, Jerry. Because also, by celebrating those small wins, you are helping some of the, I don't want to call them resistors. Let me call them the latecomers to the party, because I don't want to label them negatively. Yeah? But you are enabling the latecomers to actually see, okay, this thing can actually work. Huh? This thing could actually be beneficial. Huh? And even as we're talking about some of these latecomers, it's to say two things about resistance I forgot to mention before, and why we shouldn't see resistance, why it's a mistake to see it always as a bad thing. Resistance provides you with very helpful data. It provides you with data about potentially the need to adjust your strategy, your change strategy, your change plan. Because even if we use the Kaizen approach, where you're adapting, you start, you think this way, it's not working. Sometimes it might be those who you call the resistors who will be like, this thing will not work because of this. Rather than saying, there you go again, always complaining. It's to see, is there something in that? Do we need to rethink how we do this thing? Or do we need to communicate slightly differently? Because the way we've been communicating, we've been preaching to the converted. Now, these resistors are teaching us that maybe we need to sing a different language because they're latecomers to the past. So that's data for one. The other data that the latecomers to the party teach us is they may be reluctant to let go of the old because there might be some good things in the old you want to bring to the future. So rather than ignoring them, because again, I've seen some leaders who are like, I don't have time. Let me work with those who are coming with me. If you're not coming with me later, I'm moving with those who are ready. And then you find those who are labeled get marginalized. And guess what? Those are the ones who come and haunt you and start to spoil your new thing. But the more you actually listen to them to actually learn, okay, what is it from the old way, the old ways of doing things that you think will be valuable in the new, then you're able to bring that into the new. So that's another thing about how we, again, let's relabel them, not the resistors, the latecomers to the party, because we pray they will eventually come to the party. But thank you, Jerry, on the celebrating quick wins.
Thank you so much, Taka. Gillian?
Yes, is
Please
Gillian's
go
hand?
ahead.
Yes,
Okay,
my
brilliant.
hand is up. So
Excellent.
Taka, I loved what you said about, sometimes I find one of the conundrums that we face as a leader is that you will be the person who is charged with driving the change. And you will, on your team, you will always have a group that is willing to go with the change. They understand it, they get it, even if they don't absolutely agree with it, but they're willing to go with it. And then you will have other leaders who are determined, if not to slow it down, to undo it entirely. And sometimes their undoing just shows itself by apathy, and they have just checked out and they're not prepared to get involved or do anything like that. And so, I mean, it can be quite challenging sometimes to make a call as to how much time you spend trying to bring these people along, when most times change that needs to happen is time bound, and you tend to need to move at a certain pace to get it done. So it's something that I would love to get thoughts from you and others as well too. Thank you.
Thank you. Taka, I think we need to address this before we go into other ones.
Yes, and then I'll come also, Elizabeth in Nairobi. Betty has also a lovely point in the chat there. Gillian, you're spot on, because, and I think one of the most underutilized tools in change processes, I think we use is accountability. Because I think at some point you can bring people along, you communicate, they participate, they own, we listen to what we're bringing from the old to the new, we do all of those things, but there has to be a point where one, part of accountability is having tough conversations, where we're able to say, if I'm saying to you, Vera, I'm like, look, Vera, we've been on this journey for a while. We've talked about this a lot. I think you have so much to add to this new direction. And so what I need to see from you in the next couple of weeks is 1, 2, 3. And if not, we need to think whether you are a right fit. In other words, it's not by force. And so sometimes it is about having those eventual conversations, because what I see too many leaders doing is never having those crucial conversations. So people opt out of change. And they opt out in our, sorry to say, sometimes our way of being. Will help me with muting. I think it's Justina. Justina, you can help us to mute? Okay, brilliant. Thank you, Vera. So people opt out of change, not by being proactive, not by being explicitly, as Gillian said, they're just kind of passive, not taking initiative. And I think it's the role of leadership to not let that happen, to be able to call it out and to say, all right, we've done the change process, but right now it's time to move forward. And you have some choices to make. If you want to go with us, this is what we expect. And that's only, I think that's a valid role that leaders are expected to play. And the vice versa, and I think this is the point Elizabeth is bringing up in the chat from Nairobi, that indeed she's saying, it's true, Taka, there's always another option. I feel women are sometimes afraid to ask ourselves whether we're still a good fit for our job. That involves us changing. Leaving the job, it's scary. Fear can be such a barrier to change. And yet the reality is, sometimes we're on the flip side. We're the ones being all resistant and passive aggressive and not being, sometimes we need to realize, I'm not okay with this, I need to walk. All right, thanks. I saw Donna's hand was up, and then I see a comment from Janet in the chat.
Yeah, quick one, because just going back to what you were talking about, I think Jerry was the one who mentioned celebrating the small wins. And just to add on to what you were saying, that in terms of celebrating the small wins, another thing that it does do is maintain the momentum of the process of change, because it is so easy. We've talked about sometimes the situation being so emotionally draining that it's very easy to just go, you know what, I give up, I can't be bothered anymore. But if along the way you do celebrate the small wins, it just keeps up the momentum. Like, you know what, guys, we can do this and we're going to do it because we can see a light at the end of the tunnel. The other point you mentioned as well, data. For me, data is the new oil. Going back to what a couple of you have said about finding it difficult to get the buy-in from your CEO or your leadership for some of your projects or ideas, you cannot go wrong with data. You collect your data, put it together, translate it, show them the figures. When you have it looking at you in the face, that look, if we do this and we do this and we set this up, this is what's going to happen and it is going to benefit the company. So just to give you a very quick example, we had high incidences of absence in a particular area in the warehouse. And what we found from collating the data was that a lot of the people who were absent in that particular area, that area had extremely sort of manual intensive work. So they're lifting heavy boxes, etc. So they're suffering from a lot of musculoskeletal problems. So the muscles aching, etc. Now, you know that when you have employees off sick, it does cost the company money. Absence costs a lot of money, one of the hidden costs. And through the data, we figured out that if we were to have a physiotherapist on site, it was cheaper to have that than to have the employees off site phoning in sick. And once we showed the data to the GM, why not go right ahead? And so we had a physiotherapist coming in, twice, 3 times a week. We set up occupational health as well. And in terms of absence, sickness absence, plummeted. So data. Get your data, put it together, let it interpret whatever it is you're trying to do and show it to your CEO. And put it this way, for them, the bottom line is money. Once you can show them that it'll either make money for the organization or save them a lot of money, I don't see how you can't get the buy-in.
Oh, I love this.
I like that. Thank you, Donna.
Thank you. Okay, so
Janet on the chat, I really like that point in terms of the communicating. Janet, thank you. As part of the communicating, it's asking and answering the why. And it's so true. I've heard that so many times as people go, well, why? Why are we doing this change? And often they'll say, and why now? Why now during a pandemic? Why now when jobs are insecure? So being really clear on the why. Well, what exactly is this change? I don't understand this change. And where? So what exactly? So I think that's a really key point. Thank you, Janet, in terms of helping to bring people along. Nice.
Okay.
Ah,
Do we
there was a
have some more?
question. If there isn't
And
one,
then I give
you
my
posed
question.
a question.
I have a
Yes.
question.
I didn't
Yes,
answer
I
your
did.
earlier one. There's an echo there.
First one. Okay, so let me go ahead. So what happens when you're trying to bring about change in your team, but the whole organization is doing otherwise? That one.
Yes. And there's still an echo, Vera, on your side. Okay. I think this is a good one, Vera, particularly in a context where you're not the CEO, MD, ED, but rather maybe you are the department head or a head of a smaller team. And for instance, let's say you want a culture of excellence within your smaller team, or you want timely delivery, more customer orientation within your team, but you're noticing within the bigger team, it's a completely different issue. So when you try to hold your folks to account, when you try to encourage them, they're busy saying, you're too tough on us. Do you see anybody else trying to do this type of thing? So it's recognizing that when particularly if it's a culture thing, when you're trying to shift the subculture in a context where the bigger culture is not shifting, it is much harder. And so you, in some ways, need to operate at two levels. One is indeed to continue to influence your team, not to feel that you're being harder on them just to be hard on them, but to take pride in the fact that, okay, so our team might be more on time than other teams. Our team might have higher standards of excellence than other teams, but it's not something to feel like, oh, we're suffering more, but instead to feel a sense of pride more. So often it's a mindset issue so that people can actually feel proud of that. But the other level, and maybe it's influencing up again. It's influencing up and sideways to ensure that the bigger macrocosm, the ecosystem around which your team is operating is conducive and encourages them to operate. And this is why I often say leadership is usually not about position, influencing those who directly report to you. So many times as a leader, what you're doing is influencing up and sideways, because leadership is not about authority, it's often about influence. So that's with your response. I see more in the chat here.
Thank you so much. I just have one from Sarah. Sarah agrees with the data collection being very critical. Thank you, Sarah. And she also says that also setting some learning goals along each milestone and revisiting processes and listening to what has been gained, lost, or unresolved.
Spot on. And that's similar to Jerry's. When you look at what has been gained, those are the quick wins you share. And also being transparent about it. I find transparency in change processes is critical, because I'm sure all of you have seen when you're going through change, that is when the rumor mill starts. People are all, there are all kinds of stories going around. So being open about this is what we've gained, hooray, we celebrate, builds momentum, as Donna said, gets people excited. But also, this is what we lost. This is what didn't work. These are the people who have left, who have been unhappy about the process. And what's unresolved? This is what we're not sure about. Can all of you come on board to help us think about these types of issues? So I think that type of openness and transparency as you lead change then enables you to get ahead of the narrative. So you can talk about things in the room, not behind closed corners in WhatsApp groups and whatnot. You can take charge of it to be open about information.
Thank you so much. I think our room is quiet. But
there's a question from Jude.
Oh, just kidding. Okay. So Jude says, how long do you give yourself to know whether you have been able to successfully effect a change or not? Okay, that's the first one. Is it strictly based on the plan drawn, or there is an ideal period to measure success?
I'm going to be very naughty and ask Jude, because always behind a question, someone has an answer. I would love to hear. Jude, if you don't mind, please unmute and tell us what you think. And then after that, we'll have Flavia. But Jude, it would be lovely to hear from you, to hear your voice and tell us what you think. Jude? Okay. Maybe we'll come back to Jude after Flavia.
Flavia. Please go ahead, Flavia.
Thank you. Hi, Taka. Good to see you there. And
Hello,
thank you for this
Flavia.
opportunity. Sorry, there's a very active toddler in the background, in case you hear some noise. So my question is really around timelines in change processes, because I had someone saying change that took, I think, 10 to 15 years, you know, or something, if I had right. And I've been in a situation where everything that went wrong was justified because we are in transition. You know, we are changing, we're in a change process and all. So how do you, what is the place of timelines, especially in terms of ensuring accountability by leaders? Even when change is quite comprehensive and intense and it may take years. So how do you keep people going along, especially in multi-year change processes? And I'm just curious about the place of time and accountability, because it's an emotive process and season, as you rightly put it, anxiety, fear, and all that. So you don't want to be putting people in a situation of anxiety and fear for 10 years, you know? So how do you manage that? I'm just curious. Thank you.
Thank you, Flavia. What a fantastic question. And others, please come on in. This is collective wisdom. But some initial thoughts around this. One is that indeed, particularly if it's quite volatile change, quite disruptive change, I think there needs to be a timeline and a fixed timeline for it, a work plan that ends at some point. Because what I've seen is in the example, it was Sarah who was talking about the organization has been changing forever. A lot of people are experiencing change fatigue. So what is critical is that if you are leading a change process that's very disruptive, you have a clear beginning and a clear end, and a process where people can rest, center, regroup, stabilize before you begin again. But at the same time, I think it is important to have a culture of constantly changing, not totally disruptive, but constantly being agile and adaptable. Because I think the problem is when you have that fixed timeline and you end, people are like, phew, I never have to change again. Now I'm set for life. When that's not the issue. It's about seeing how can you always be change ready. We don't want to disrupt you every moment, but how can you be constantly change ready? But it is important to have those timelines. Otherwise, it really exhausts people. People need time to regroup, rest, and know they're safe. Change makes people feel very unsafe. They need that time of safety. And then maybe Vera, Flavia, I hope that's okay.
Yes, thank you. Very useful. Thanks.
Okay. And I think as Janet, just adding on Janet's point, she's saying you don't want people to feel that they're permanently undergoing change, but they're adaptable at the same time. So I think it has to be moments of settled change, moments of settling, but it's also about supporting your people to be resilient, because you can't guarantee a lot. So it's also enabling them to say, no matter what happens, this is how you can be resilient. And maybe I'll go to Jude's question then, around time plans. Jude, I would say, and this is tied a little bit to Flavia's, I would say then it is important to have a clear plan with milestones and indicators of success. How will we know when we have we've reached that point? Because that should be able to tell you that, okay, we know that we've achieved our success in the moving of direction when all of a sudden we see roles have changed, people are doing things differently, people are settled in their new positions, those kinds of timelines. But even as you draw a plan, remember that you may have to revisit the plan as you go along. But it is important to have those measures of success in the beginning so you know when you have arrived. Okay, I see a lot in the chat.
Yeah, I want to end.
Yes, look at the time. So let's take a few last ones and then we're going to start
one from
wrapping.
Kelvin. One from Kelvin, yeah. What is the best way to communicate difficulties with ongoing change to directors when such difficulties are obvious?
I always say, particularly, I'm assuming, Kelvin, if you're communicating up, I always say, don't go with problems if you don't have a solution. So go indeed with the challenge, but ensure you have some options for them to take in terms of how should those difficulties be addressed. And as let me add to Donna's point, if you have data to back it up, to say, this is my recommended option for going forward, but never go just with problems. Ideally, also go with some solutions to deal with those problems. But thanks for that. Lovely to see you, Kelvin. And thank you, Janet, for that as well.
Gillian agrees. She says solutions are good. And on this note, solutions are good. Thank you, Taka.
Oh, this bit has been so amazing.
Thank you,
Vera,
Taka.
your people have been fantastic.
Wonderful people. Thank you, everybody. Now, if you do want to be reminded of our programs privately, you don't want to forget, there are a couple of ways to go around this, okay? Join our tribe. Go to the website www.busara-africa.com. Subscribe, and you'll always be getting feedback from us, some nice newsletters, and some very educative blogs also from us. If you don't want to go to the website, we have our programs manager, Lydia, on the call, okay? And Lydia will be so happy to be reminding you via WhatsApp. So you can chat with her via WhatsApp, and she would be very pleased to be reminding you of this program. We do this every last Friday of the month. We do it at 4, that's 1600 GMT, and we end at 5 p.m. And we open it up so we can get very interactive. We want to thank you so much for joining us. This is a very good
if people would like Lydia to send them a reminder, if they could just send a private message, you see Lydia's phone number is there, or send a private message in the chat right now to Lydia with your WhatsApp number. She will store that and send you a reminder, but she's also put her WhatsApp number in the chat. Sorry, Vera.
Awesome. I think we're good. This number is very good. 94. I think we were at 96 or so.
Yes.
Around 97.
Oh, 97. Awesome.
Nice.
Awesome. Thank you. We want to take a group picture before we leave. So please do us the favor, come on to the camera. Let us see your beautiful, okay. Thank you,
yes,
James. Helena.
Thank you all. Lovely to see you all. You know how we all end by dancing together, but also we will take a group photo. I think Muriel, who is supporting us, will do, or Lydia can do a screenshot. So we have a group photo. And please join us for dancing as we end. You've all been so fantastic. Thank you all so much. Lovely seeing you all. Vera, thank you so much. Please join us to dance as we end, as we celebrate Africa. All of you who've contributed, we know the difference this continent will make.
Thank you, Mr. Poby from Facebook. Thank you, Donna. Thank you, Sarah. Thank you, Gillian. Thank you, Lydia, Muriel, Patience, Doreen. Doreen is here. Let's dance.
I'm here.
I'm trying to connect to my music. Forgive all technology.
Connected to iPad 5 and Galaxy A2.
Oh, we are still taking the pictures. So some more faces. Thank you, Muriel. Josephine, thank you. Although you are driving. See you next month.